Welcome to On the X. My guest today is Zachary Levi, an actor and author best known for his roles on the show Chuck and in DC's Shazam film franchise. He also earned a Tony nomination for She Loves Me. Beyond acting, Zach has become a powerful voice for mental health. His books Radical Love and Go Love Yourself explore self-acceptance, healing, and emotional wellness, messages he continues to champion publicly through his personal experiences. His newest movie, Not Without Hope, tells the true story of a deadly 2009 boating accident off the coast of Florida and the lone survivor's fight against the elements. Zach is also building a production company, Wildwood Studios, founded to create what he calls organic, human-made content. So here we go with Zachary Levi on the X. Well, let's talk about your new movie, Not Without Hope. I luckily, this is another thing my kids thought was so awesome. I was like, they gave me an advanced screening of this movie, and they were like, "Wait a minute, you get to see a movie before?" So I watched it last night. I did not know this story. I had never heard of it. It's an incredible story of survival. It's a very emotional story too. Like, I found myself very emotionally wrapped up in it. So how did this come across your desk, and what drew you to the story and wanting to tell it?
Yeah. So, well, I was aware of the story. I remember, hearing about it on the news kind of in passing when it happened in 2009 and thinking to myself, wow, that is just so tragic. Like, I'm a pretty empathetic person. And I, when I hear about tragedy, I just immediately, I put myself in the shoes of those who experienced it and those who are then affected by that, the friends, the family of everybody that, was involved in the men who passed away. And it really shook me. I was just like, wow, what a horrible way to go. Not that there's a lot of great ways to ultimately die, unless you're dying in your sleep of old age and you're stoked on it, right? But so I knew about it, but I didn't know a lot of the details of it. And then, a book had been written about it because Nick, who I play in the film, he was the sole survivor. He wrote a book about it. And pretty quickly there was, interest in making a film. And then over the, 15, 16 years, there were lots of moments where it almost happened and they were setting it up with this actor or that actor. And then I guess, a couple of years ago, it came across my desk and I read the script, and it kind of wrecked me. Like the idea, I mean, you feel so many things. You feel desperation and anxiety for these guys. I felt anger, I felt anger that it all came down to a $500 anchor, that Marquise ultimately, because he had just lost an anchor the week before, was like, no, I'm not losing another anchor. I'm going to get this thing out. And then that ultimately led to, kind of where all of them found themselves. And but that it brings the audience through this really harrowing journey, true story of these men, really relying on each other to survive against all odds in the elements. And, the unfortunate reality that 3 of them ultimately did pass, but that Nick lived, and he lived on to tell that story, tell their story. We got to now, tell their story and hopefully honor them, and not just the lives, not just, how they passed, but ultimately, the lives that they lived before that, and the men that they were. Leaving the audience, it's obviously not a feel-good movie, but it does hopefully leave the audience with hope, with some semblance of, you got to hold on to that last shred of hope, no matter what, you got to hold on to that. And trust that there are people that are outside, your friends and your family, that are hoping with you and praying for you and believing with you. And that all just resonated with me. And I thought, what, I want to go make this movie. And it also, even just reading it, I was like, this is going to be a challenge. I've been doing this 26 years. And so when I read scripts, I'm able to kind of look at them and break down, what is that going to look like from a production standpoint? Like, how are we going to shoot this thing? Clearly in a water tank somewhere, which we did. And we shot in Malta in this massive water tank that was fed from actual ocean water that was freezing. And we had these water cannons and wind machines and rain machines and wave machines. And, it was a gnarly experience, man. I mean, it was nothing, obviously, in comparison to what those guys were actually going through. But me and and Quentin and Terrence and Marshall, we really banded together as brothers on that boat, and we're there for each other, supporting each other through all of just that intensity, and just try to channel all of that into the performances, essentially.
Watching it for myself, I was having flashbacks to SEAL training in Hell Week, because it's obviously that's a controlled environment, but that feeling of being just soaking wet and freezing cold hour after hour in the dark and all of that stuff, I can at least relate to on a small level, like again, in a controlled environment, but thinking about being in that, because they said in the movie, they say the water is like 50 something degrees that those guys were in. Right.
Yeah.
And that is so cold.
So cold. It's so cold. And a lot of people don't realize that, I mean, they could have been in 80-degree water.
Yes, exactly.
You'll still die from hypothermia.
Yes, right.
You know, if you're in anything less than what your body temperature is, 98.6 degrees, eventually that, because water is so temperature conductive, right? That's why cold plunging is so effective, whereas like just standing out in 30-degree air, it takes you far longer for your core temperature to drop, because air is not as conductive. But when you're in the water, you could be scuba diving in the Bahamas. If you're in 80-degree water, eventually you're still going to get hypothermia. It doesn't matter. And they were in 50-degree. And, you know, Nick ultimately, I mean, part of the reason why he survived was because he just happened to have the most amount of clothes on, including this, you know, orange jacket that his mother gave him, that the guys all, you know, gave him so much shit about. But that provided this kind of wetsuit-ish, you know, insulation, if you will. And the other guys simply just did not have that. And, you know, and also, you know, one of the things that I wasn't aware of until I made this movie is that hypothermia is a horrible way to go, because you don't realize that essentially, because your body is starting to lose all of its warmth, all the blood is now being consolidated down into your organs to stay alive, which means it's leaving your brain and you are losing your grip on reality. You're hallucinating and going crazy, essentially. So yeah, man, I can't even imagine. I mean, we were surrounded by, you know, rescue divers and medical teams, and, you know, so there was never a moment where I thought that like, oh, we're going to die from this. But, you know, similar to, you know, your controlled environment doing buds, I mean, just because it's controlled doesn't mean it's not
it's not like
tremendously miserable experience. But as actors, that we just tried to channel that as much as we could into the performance to make it as authentic as we could. But yeah, man, it was gnarly. That's I can't really say anything other than that. It was just a really gnarly experience.
Did you get to meet Nick or any of the family members in preparation for what you were doing?
I did. So, you know, Nick was the fortunate one, obviously, in real life. And then therefore I was the fortunate one in that I had an actual living counterpart to interface with. And I was able to have a few phone calls with him and pick his brain and his heart and kind of try to glean as much as I could from him about where was he at in all of that. As you can imagine, it was an insanely traumatic experience. And with trauma, there's a lot of memory that's repressed. And so even when we were trying to dig into some of that, he was like, man, I can't tell you exactly what I was thinking or feeling in that moment. You know, like I got a general sense of it, obviously, but there were certain moments that he just could not go back to. And I completely understood. And then he also, Nick and Paula, his then girlfriend, now wife, they visited us when we were in Malta. And that was a very surreal experience for everybody, because they were watching us reenact. I mean, I think they were there on specific nights when both Marquise and Corey died, and maybe even Will. But they were there for some of those pivotal scenes. Yeah. And they're watching us recreate that, which was really gnarly for them. And it's also, you know, kind of gnarly for us too. I mean, it's, you know, we're trying to do justice to him and his story and honor the lives of those men. but you know, I appreciated it. I appreciated that he was willing to kind of push through that, to be there to kind of bless us in that, and to give, because when you're doing a real story, that's the audience that you're doing it for more than anything. It's like you want to make sure that you're honoring those real people, and I believe that we did that, and I think that Nick believes that we did that, and so yeah, we got to spend some time with Nick, and I've also gotten to see him since the movie and done some press with him as well.
You're somebody who has spoken so openly about your own kind of like mental health journey, so to speak. And obviously has to be still going through a lot with that. Was that something you guys talked about at all? Like, given the fact that, you know, you've been so open about what you've gone through, did he open up about that at all? I'm just kind of curious if that was a place that you guys could kind of discuss those types of things.
Not really. You know, Nick is a very stoic man. Okay. I think in part, particularly when it comes to this incident, like it was so insane and traumatic. And he kind of had to already relive it so many times when he wrote the book, and when he did the press tour, and he was on Larry King and Oprah and all, you know, so it's like, once you've had to do that so many times already, it's very difficult to then want to talk about it more and more and more. But I know that we talked, because I definitely asked him, like, you know, how are you doing now? And he's good. You know, I mean, he's happily married to Paula. They have children. He loves being a dad. He feels very fulfilled in his life. And I'm really happy for them, and grateful that he was able to survive this ordeal and continue to live on. And I think even honor those men in that, right? It's like kind of in Saving Private Ryan, when Tom Hanks looks at Matt Damon's character and he's like, earn it, you know, which is a really heavy thing to say to somebody. It's like, it's like, yeah, we all went out of our way, this platoon of soldiers, and all of us died in order to make sure that you get back home to your family. So earn it, right? And I think that Nick has done that. I think that he continues to go live a full and good life, and be a good husband and father and son, and you know, putting good into this world. But you know, we didn't really get into the depths of the mental health of it all. It just wasn't something that we, you know, really got into.
One thing I appreciated about it is that it's a very human story. It's not like a big CGI production. It's just very much a story about, I would say, sort of three groups of people: the four men that are on the boat, the sort of rescue effort, and their families, and how they're all interacting with those things, right? And I know you've been kind of outspoken about getting back to more human type of storytelling when it comes to film, television, whatever. And you even have your own studio that you're either launching or have already launched.
We're raising money for right now to build. Yeah.
Okay,
that's
so talk a little bit about that, like what you see as the problem that you see in the industry potentially, and the solution you're trying to provide. Because I certainly felt that watching the film, because in a way that a lot of blockbuster movies and things, not that there's anything wrong with that, obviously, like you played a superhero and did it extremely well, right?
Thanks.
Those are great. Love those things. But I think watching a story that is just about humanity and kind of like everyday superheroes, so to speak, is really nice to watch and kind of like be part of for a little while. So yeah, talk about that. You know.
Yeah. Well, listen, man. I mean, I think that the problem with Hollywood is the same problem that we have essentially across all industries, which is that they all value profit over people. That's what it comes down to. Yeah. Hollywood has been doing this since its inception. I don't think that as a system, it's not to say that there aren't people within the system that aren't really good people who do care, but as a system, it does not value the artists, and it doesn't value the audience, which is evident in a lot of the just kind of not great content that keeps coming out of Hollywood. And it's not great for myriad reasons. Sometimes it's not great because it is just CGI laden, you know, big actiony stuff that has no substance. And then from my opinion, I think there's a lot of stuff that just has far too much agenda that's just laced in it, right? And I would say that, you know, traditionally or typically what has happened is that a lot of that agenda tends to be, let's say, ideology that's very left leaning. But I also don't like agenda at all. I don't like it. I don't like, there's a reason why like a lot of like, let's say, Christian conservative movies haven't been very good for a really long time. And it's because they're just full of agenda. It's like they don't care about making a good movie as long as we say Jesus enough times, then we've made a good movie. And it's like, no, that's actually not how you make a good movie. You have to tell a better story. You have to use more subtlety and artistry in order to actually captivate somebody, in order to move them. And I think that there's so many great stories that can be told that don't have agenda. You don't have to go there. You can just tell really good stories, human stories, relatable stories. But they can also be fantasy. They can have a lot of CGI, so long as there's substance that underpins that and backs that up. What I'm attempting to build out in Texas is something that I feel like God put on my heart 26 years ago when I started working in Hollywood, because I got my first look behind the curtain and I saw how all the sausage was made, and I was just angry and I was sad. I cared far too much about other human beings and excellence to find myself at that point working in an industry and finding out that they didn't care about either of these things. They don't really value the artists. And that's evident in how we get paid, what our schedules are like, working everybody to the bone, squeezing every last ounce of energy and time and money out of everyone and everything so that the studios can all just have better bottom lines and please their shareholders. I mean, this is the problem with capitalism, when you don't have something that's checking it with some kind of consciousness or conscientiousness. Yep. This is where we're like, I'm a capitalist, but I'm a conscientious capitalist. Yep. Like, it's of all the isms, it works the best of all of the isms, but it's still, as human beings, ego gets in there, and therefore greed gets in there. And we need to find, and we have to build a better system than that. I mean, the reality is that Charlie Chaplin, Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, all of these OGs in the silent era, they knew this. They started United Artists Studio, which today still exists, but it's kind of like a production company shingle. But at the time when they started it, it was a physical studio to make movies that was owned and operated by the artists, so they could get it out of the hands of the greedy, power-hungry, ego-driven studio heads that weren't visionary and weren't creative and didn't care about the artists and didn't care about the audience. They understood that over 100 years ago, and we've needed that alternative ever since. We've needed something, a rebel alliance to take on the empire, so that we can go and just do better and have better lives and figure out how we can do the production system in a way that is more about human flourishing. I mean, one example being, when you work in Hollywood, you're lucky if you're shooting a 12-hour day. Typically, you might go 13, 14, 15, 16-hour days. Yep. And then we have these turnarounds because of our unions, where as an actor, you are mandated to have a 12-hour turnaround. They can force that by an hour or two a few times a week. But even still, if you're shooting 15-hour days and you have a 12-hour turnaround each time, by the time you get to Friday, your day doesn't even start until 3 in the afternoon, and you shoot until 8 in the morning. We'd call them fratter days. And you're walking off a soundstage at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning, and then you got to figure out how to get your body clock back on so that you can wake up at 6 a.m. to get to work on Monday. It destroys your mental and emotional and physical well-being. It breaks up marriages. It breaks up communities. We get moved around like pawns for the last, really 40 years of Hollywood, maybe even a little bit longer. Hollywood the entertainment industry all basically used to shoot in LA. I mean, that's what it was, right? And so you could live there, you could work there, your community was there. And then in the last 40 to 50 years, we've been getting shipped off to go chase filming incentives everywhere around the country and the world. And when you do that, divorce rates skyrocket, communities get broken up. I'm not able to be there for my kids and their recitals or their games. Like, that's just not the way to live a life. It's just not good. It's not healthy. And so I want to create a place that values humans more than it's valuing the almighty dollar, which is not to say you can't still make a lot of money. I mean, the reality is every company that actually has understood this and values their workers and uses some of their profit. You don't take all of your profits, take 5-10% of your profits and redirect that back at giving your workers a better life. Because I firmly believe that the happiest bees make the tastiest honey. It is true. And when you do that, you make a better product. That story gets out to your consumers. They're like, oh, wow, I want to support a company that cares about their workers. And that cares about their product, cares about us, the consumer. They're not cutting corners and using ingredients that are bad for us. They're holding the line and making sure that no matter what, they're giving us the best ingredients at the best price. That's a company I want to support. When you do that, shocker, you make more money in the long run. But everyone is they're so short-sighted, and CEOs come into companies and they're like, how much money can I make in 5 years? That's all I care about. And that's all about pleasing shareholders, and that means maximizing profits, and no matter what. Oh, we're going to screw up the environment, we're going to poison people, we might even kill them. I mean, look at pharmaceutical companies now. It's crazy what's happening. And so I feel very compelled to go create a new type of movie studio that genuinely values the artists and values the audience. And I think that's what we deserve.
I completely agree with you. And I think that that's so applicable to any company, any organization out there at any level. I just think it's 100% right. It's just, we've gotten to the point where we value money so greatly that we just go after it at the cost of everything else, at the cost of our own families, at the cost of our workers, potentially, just at everything. So where are you in this process? Like how far along are you in terms of developing this thing?
So I've got an incredible team of general partners. We are probably a month away from being fully entitled to start putting shovels in the ground. We are currently raising $14 million in equity. We've raised about $1 million of that so far. And we've got some other, kind of financial vehicles that can help support that. But the first phase would be build 2 20,000 square foot sound stages and all the offices and accoutrement to kind of support that kind of business center of it. That would include podcasting studios, music recording, all of that, things. I really want this place to be a home for anyone who works in the arts and sciences of entertainment, essentially. So that's movies and television and music and video games and, anything that can be supported in that. Phase 2 would be building an actual living community, 40 plus homes for people to live there in residence, kind of creating our own little blue zone. I like getting people out of having to commute hours to and from work, wasting that time, having a school on campus for our kids where it's real education and not just nonsense indoctrination, which is unfortunately what so many schools have found themselves in right now. The education system is broken. Our health and wellness system is broken. We would have a health and wellness center there so that people can actually heal and not just be throwing pharmaceutical band-aids at symptoms, which is where our medical industry has led us. Having regenerative, organically grown food on our own farm, and giving everybody the opportunity to engage in these things. I think we need to get back to understanding what it means to connect to ourselves, to each other, to nature, to God in all of that. Community is one of the things we've all lost, and we've lost it. We started losing it, a long time ago. We were tribal peoples for thousands of years. We knew each other. We relied on each other. We trusted each other. And then we were in villages. We still kind of had some semblance of that. Even when we started getting to, let's say, cities, people still pretty much kind of knew their neighbors. But then I think post-World War II, when we had the boom of the suburbs and vehicles, well, all of a sudden, people lived far distances from their family and their friends, and they were, again, spending all this time in cars commuting to and from work. But the truth is, community has always been less about who you live next to and far more about who you work next to. Who are you co-collaborating, co-creating, co-working with? I mean, as a SEAL, like the relationships that you had and probably still have with the men that you served with and next to, the trust that you built, like that will never be recreated in any way, shape, or form. That is something that so many people long for. And it's one of the reasons why, I'm sure you can speak to this, but why so many men and women who are in the service, when they come back from a deployment, they kind of feel a little lost because they're like, this doesn't feel like community back here. What felt like real community and what we're built for was out there, as dangerous as it was, as insane as it was, or whatever the living conditions were, living in a foreign country and being shot at, you felt connected to your fellow man. And I think that's what we have to get back to. Yeah,
totally. That reminds me of something. So in your book, let me just talk real quick about that aspect of it. So we booked this interview,
sure.
I think 4 days ago, and I've been wanting to have you on this podcast for a long time, and not knowing anything about your new film, but just because of your mental health journey, and it's something that's so near and dear to my own heart and my own journey as well, but also our community. I just think it's so relevant to the veteran community, special operations community, our listeners, and I just think it's a really important thing. But given the time frame there, I was like, okay, I don't even have enough time to order his book and get it in the mail. And I'm not going to a bookstore, right? Nobody goes to a bookstore anymore. So I'm like, okay, I'll listen to the audiobook, which I'm really happy I did because you narrate it, which is awesome, especially being basically a memoir, but also because of your nature and just how animated you are. And it's just a great way to listen to the narrative of that. There's kind of two things that I want to ask you here. One is, just how that whole experience and everything you've talked about in that, how that's now kind of redefining how you then look at these types of projects, right? And you've talked about it a little bit, but just like your own journey there and how anyone can apply that back to their own lives, their own businesses, the people under them. But the other one is, since you brought it up there, one of your chapters in that book is called Just Be. And you had a take on purpose that I've never heard before that I thought was really interesting, because I'm somebody that's big. I talk a lot about, you're talking veteran transition, when we sort of seemingly lose purpose in our lives. And people feel like this job gave me purpose. And I'm big on, hey, purpose isn't something to go find under a rock. You got to like create it for yourself. You got to get back to your values. But you had a really nice take, which was like, just by being, you have purpose. Like your being in this world by itself is purpose enough. And I thought that was such a beautiful take on that idea. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Let me say this first and foremost, that, and I talk about it in the book. I am not at the end of some healing journey. Yeah. I am very much in the middle and will be probably for the rest of my life. I think that's, that is the healing journey. You know, maybe I get to, 70 or 80 or something, and I've really gotten through all of the trauma. But I'll tell you, I mean, even recently, I've had a lot of things come up for me, and going back and feeling regression of not feeling my worth again and feeling like a failure, but I do think that it is absolutely true. We have been conditioned so greatly, particularly as men, but I think men and women both, that, in order for you to have any worth in this world, you have got to have achieved certain things. I think for women, there is a huge weight of, being a mother, having children, like those maternal things. And listen, there's something that resonates in that, honestly, because there is actual evolutionary worth in what that is. And even as men, being the hunters of the hunter-gatherers, like there's something that we did for a really long time, which was the protection and provision that we provided to our community, to our families. And so when you don't feel like you are living up to that, it can very easily feel like you don't have a worth in this world. But I think that God is so much bigger than that. And I think that our lives are so much more precious than that. I think that, we don't realize how much we're offering to this world, even outside of all of that. Like, I'm not sitting around looking at any of my friends or family ever and thinking, oh man, they're not really accomplishing a lot. Ever. I don't ever think that. I'm glad that they're alive. I'm glad that they're in my life. I'm glad that I get to interface with them and spend holidays with them and play board games or whatever, right? Like, that is where our life and the lives of others, community, I mean, that's such a massive part, again, of understanding our worth, because we are a part of something that is so much larger than us. And our just life essence gets to be a part of that and bring value to that. But we must love ourselves. If you're not loving yourself, and I struggle with this all the time, if you're not loving yourself, you very easily aren't going to be bringing that positivity to the community, because you're lost in your own self-pity. You're lost in your own depression or regrets and anxieties. I do it all the time. It's a struggle for me. And the deeper I dive into my childhood trauma, which is where basically almost all of it is rooted, you know, I've recently, a couple times now, actually, I've gone to, a place called Beyond down in Cancun that does Ibogaine treatment.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I've spent time with servicemen, because, you know, what you guys go through is insane. What happens to your brain when it comes to either traumatic brain injuries or the PTSD, right? And having conversations with a lot of these operators that come back from war and that go and get this treatment, and they recognize that, yeah, I'm getting treated for some PTSD that I got while I was at war, but every bit of that is still rooted back in my childhood. Like,
Yeah,
why would anyone
so
want
true.
to go to war if not to go prove something to themselves and to everyone else that was rooted somewhere down in their childhood? And so we've got to be able to do that work. Ibogaine has proven to be a really helpful tool and medicine for that. And I encourage anyone that's listening to this podcast, if you are struggling, give Beyond a look, BEOND. They're down in Cancun, incredible people that run it, with so much love and so much intention. But, you know, I haven't gone to war, but I've got tons of PTSD. The PTSD that I endured as a child from just living in an abusive household. I mean, that's ultimately where mine came from.
Yep.
It's different, but trauma is weird like that. You don't have to have killed someone or watched your fellow man being killed next to you. That is intense trauma. And it's also a massive spectrum trauma. And so, you know, I think everybody needs to know that you are worthy of getting the help that you need and finding whatever modalities are going to help you to get there.
Did you go do Ibogaine? Did you actually go?
I did twice.
Oh, wow.
I've done it twice now. Yeah. And I need it. I need it. I mean, I'm not pretending to say that my childhood was, you know, any worse than plenty of other people that had really gnarly childhoods. But I can say that my childhood was really, really, when you're a young child and the psychological and even sometimes, you know, physical abuse that you might endure is there, and you have no way of contextualizing it. You have no way of understanding what that means. You're just feeling the abuse. You're feeling you're feeling that trauma. You have no way, and also you repress so much of it in order for you to survive, right? So you don't know, like, only now at 45 years old am I really, even after having written this book, when I went to the therapy that I did and I wrote that book, I was still unaware of some of the things that are coming up in my life right now because they were so far down in there, like so far down. And this last time I went down to Beyond, oh my gosh, boy, did it crack me open. It cracked me open. I was like, oh, wow. So I've been acting out of this unhealed trauma in all of these very unhealthy ways for myself or other people, not even knowing it, not realizing that I was trying to somehow stay ahead of this pain, of finding my place in this world, of proving my worth in this world. You know, I mean, it's deep, man. It's really deep. So it's definitely been helpful for me. And I know it's been helpful for so many people. And by the way, there's a program at Beyond for veterans, specifically for veterans, that can help people go get healed. So I can't recommend it enough.
Have you watched In Waves and War, the documentary?
I haven't. I have not seen it.
Oh, you got to watch it.
But I've heard great things about it. It speaks to this, you know, in depth. That's a different clinic that people went to. I think it's called Ambio or something like that.
Yeah,
they're in Tijuana.
Marcus and Amber's.
Yeah. But similar treatment and situation. And again, it just speaks to the healing properties of this. So
the mental fitness stuff it's a pet project of mine, and there's stuff that I'm working on too. It's very similar. My journey is different than yours, but just trying to kind of like be that vulnerable voice. And I'd love to dive more in there. So we'll let you go. Zach, thank you so much for coming on, for spending the time, for, you know, telling these stories, for being vulnerable, like all of that stuff, man. It's really inspiring. I think it's extremely helpful for people. So I truly enjoyed the book.
Chris.
I truly enjoyed the movie. And let's get you back on if we can at some point.
Awesome. God bless you, brother. Have a great rest of your day. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, bro. Thanks for listening to On the X, the official podcast of the Navy SEAL Foundation and an Ironclad original series. Learn more at NavySealFoundation.org or text On the X to 60104. Please like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.